Castlevania Aria of Sorrow is the third and final Castlevania installment for the Game Boy Advance. Released in 2003, the game continued the Metroidvania-style gameplay, which the series adopted back in '97 with the brilliant PlayStation title, Symphony of the Night. Aria of Sorrow has been praised by fans and critics alike as the best installment of the three for the Game Boy Advance, fixing many of the issues that were heavily criticized in the previous edition, Harmony of Dissonance. Aria of Sorrow takes place in the year 2035, a departure from the medieval time period we've grown accustomed to with previous titles. You play as Soma Cruz, a foreign exchange student studying in Japan with his childhood friend Mina. The two climb a shrine in order to view a solar eclipse when they are suddenly sucked into the eclipse and find themselves in a castle. Dracula's castle. Now, if you played Symphony of the Night, Circle of the Moon, or Harmony of Dissonance, then you know what to expect here as not much has changed. You still earn experience points and gain levels by defeating enemies. Save rooms and warp points are scattered throughout the castle, and items are collected, including weapons and armor, which can be equipped. Maps can be accessed at any time, showing you where you've been, and which areas remain unexplored. And tons of monsters inhabit the castle, and are willing to lend a hand. Lend a hand? What exactly do I mean by that? Well, I'll tell you. One of the differences that this game offers from the others is the absence of sub-weapons such as the axe or holy water in favor of tactical souls, spirits absorbed by Soma when he destroys an enemy to then be used as a weapon. This means you can potentially use numerous different attacks against foes in exchange for magic power. While this is a new feature for a Castlevania game, absorbing enemy attributes has been done long before, most notably in several side-scrolling shooters such as Gyruss. Other souls provide the same attributes as relics had in the past, so that aspect remains familiar. Now, like I mentioned before, there was some criticism for the previous installment, Harmony of Dissonance, which were addressed in Aria. The main one is the music. In fact, it's the reason why I never even bothered with Aria of Sorrow until 12 years after its release. While no one could deny that the graphics in Harmony were nothing short of astounding, it's obvious the audio was sacrificed to make it so. Koji Igarashi took note of this, and brought on the same composer that he had worked with on Symphony of the Night, Michiru Yamane. The result is a much better soundtrack than Harmony without the expense of the visuals losing vibrancy. In fact, the graphics are even more impressive than its predecessor, and is one of the most visually impressive games on the Game Boy Advance, period. More of the hidden rooms that were lacking in Harmony were added, and one of the biggest issues with the map was resolved. In previous games, if a doorway or opening is unattainable at the time, the opening will be shown on the map as a small indentation or divot in the wall or floor. Imagine trying to identify these divots across the map on your Game Boy Advance screen. Yeah, good luck. Aria of Sorrow fixed this issue brilliantly by replacing divots with the color blue. Now, if an opening is present, the wall, floor, or ceiling will be colored blue instead of white, and you'll know that you can pass through at that spot. I can't believe they didn't think of fixing that until the 3rd edition. Also, one of my personal gripes, though not a large one by any means, is that Juiced Belmont, the protagonist from Harmony of Dissonance, has an extremely drab and just plain blah personality, where Soma seems to be a bit more energetic with a dry wit and sense of confidence that seems to contrast with his effeminate garb and pretty boy haircut. Soma is a much more likable character that's easy to root for. You befriend several other visitors within the castle, and one of them turns out to be the embodiment of Dracula himself, awaiting to transform with the power of reincarnation. You team up with others in order to stop him. A shopkeeper is also present to provide invaluable weapons and goods to assist Soma along the way. So with all of the praise this game has received, many stating it's one of the best Castlevania games ever, why is it my least favorite on the Game Boy Advance? The graphics are awesome, the soundtrack is excellent, what more could I want? Well, I was unable to pinpoint it exactly, but here's what I came up with. While the music is a huge improvement over Harmony of Dissonance, the melodies I feel aren't nearly as memorable as the ones on Circle of the Moon. The castle layout seems to be a lot more linear, with a lot less backtracking than previous editions. Seeing as the map was vastly improved, returning to unattainable areas would have been much more rewarding. The difficulty seemed to be toned down a bit, and I felt it was simply too easy at parts. Rarely was I challenged by any of the bosses, and usually disposed of them on my first attempt. But here's the big one. The Tactical Soul system. This system replaced the use of sub-weapons, and while I understand the desire to do something different for a Castlevania game, I found this mechanic overwhelmingly underwhelming. I'm the type of Castlevania player that throws vial after vial of holy water and rains crosses down on my foes. Sure, having the ability to absorb the soul of each and every baddie in the game makes for more weapons, but the truth is that the majority of these weapons, or souls, are completely useless, and there were really only 3 powers I used throughout the game. It got to the point where I stopped checking what new souls I obtained to avoid disappointment and wasting time. This is the main factor as to why I like this one the least out of the 3 GBA titles. If this isn't that big of a deal to you, then you'll probably have a much different opinion of this game than I do. But just because it's my least favorite on the Game Boy Advance doesn't mean that it's bad at all, because it's not. This one is a bit short in length, but there is plenty of replay value with the boss rush and hard mode that unlocks after you beat the game. You can also exchange souls with the Buddies cartridge via the link cable, so that's pretty cool. If you're a Castlevania fan, you have to play this one. All 3 Castlevanias on the Game Boy Advance are superb and should not be missed. The cartridge can be found fairly cheap, and it's also available on the Wii U Virtual Console for $8. Have fun this Halloween and check out Aria of Sorrow.